You found the Hillbilly Voodoo channel. We're back at work at the old fart drift cart. For those of you that are subscribed or have been following along, you know in the last episode we had this thing down on the ground. We had the motor fired up. Our little clutch and belt thing contraption here that powers this didn't quite work. Well, I can't say it didn't work. It worked, but the gear ratio is completely wrong. All it did was smoke the belt. It managed to get me going across the floor a little bit, but it's definitely wasn't putting enough torque to the wheels to get the wheels to spin like we want a drift cart to do. I was feeling pretty discouraged, so I went out and wandered around, looked at all my piles of ground obtainium, the junk that I have on the ground, and I think that maybe I have come up with a solution for this. I don't know if it's going to work, but I definitely need to change the gear ratio. The pulley, clutch, all this idea was obviously working. It was grabbing, it was smoking, it was transmitting power to the wheels, but we just didn't have enough torque or enough low gear to get the wheels to go around. So what am I going to do about this situation? Well, keep watching, we'll figure this out together. Now, I know some people are probably saying, well, why don't you just buy a centrifugal clutch? Well, I don't really like to buy things, especially for a project like this where we're just having fun and it's not got a real purpose. It's just for screwing around. But yeah, a centrifugal clutch is only $40 on the Jungle site there, or I could actually build myself a centrifugal clutch. I probably have somewhat of the skills to do it. I've never done it before, but I'm sure I could figure it out. The only issue is the centrifugal clutch is not going to change the gear ratio. The centrifugal clutch will engage, it will slip. Chances are I'm so big that the centrifugal clutch will just smoke and burn up before I'll get the results that I want. So even if I go to a centrifugal clutch, I'm going to have to change the gearing somehow. So this is about the only way that I can come up with to create lower gears without more or less completely revamping this whole project and starting over again. Now, if this doesn't work, I do possibly have another plan, but it involves a different engine. So we're going to try to make this situation work. If anything, you'll see me machining some parts and building some parts, and hopefully those parts will maybe give you ideas for parts on your projects. So let's get at this. I'm going to change the chuck in the lathe, and we'll chuck up those parts and turn them down, and yeah, we'll get at her. Well, I'm thinking I've come up with another idea to try here. This is a pulley. It's a stepper pulley. That was meant, one belt came in from this direction, one belt came in from this direction. There's bearings on the inside of it. The problem is both pulleys are the same size around. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to take these pulleys off. I'm going to use the shaft with the bearings in them. And I am going to take this big huge chunk of aluminum. It's a blank that I've poured to make pulleys out of. And I'm going to build a stepper pulley. And what I mean by a stepper pulley is I'll have two pulleys on the same block of aluminum. One will be a small pulley in here, and one will be a big pulley out here. You guys following along so far? Okay, so we're going to take this big block of aluminum. We're going to have the bearings in the shaft on the inside. We're going to have the belt go to the big side first. From the big side, we'll have the smaller pulley on the inside going down to our big pulley here. Now, this should substantially drop our gear ratio. The only thing that I'm going to have to do is move around our tensioning pulley here. Probably have to raise it up some. This linkage will probably have to be changed, and Yeah, different things like that. But that's about the only idea I can come up with right now that might work. Do we know if it's going to work? No, we don't have a clue if it's going to work. We're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, well, then we're going to have to come up with something else. So the first step, I think, is going to be to take this thing, get rid of these pulleys. They're welded onto that center hub there. It's obviously mashed and bent, and so it'll probably never ever be used for anything else. So at least I can use the center hub with the bearings in it for the jack shaft that's in here. I know they do look like they're different size, but the inside where the V groove is exactly the same. So first step, we will machine these welds off, pulleys off, so that we have this centerpiece. Yeah, that sounds like an idea. Let's get to it. I got this big block of aluminum in the lathe there now. Change the chuck, put the big chuck on. Gonna face it off, get it a little bit rounder, square it all up. I'm hoping I can give you guys a few good shots here, but I don't know if I'll get my big fat head in the way or not, and I kind of want to stay out of the way of this block of aluminum in case it comes flying out of here and plunks me in the side of the head. So here goes, let's see what we can get. Got our big block of aluminum flipped around here and machined down, or face down, sorry, to a point where I'm going to create a shoulder in here so that I can grab it with the jaws and open the jaws up and hold the material from the inside so that I can machine all the stuff on the outside here. First I'm going to drill a hole through, and then I'm going to square this off, bore it back a little bit. This is going to be the wide side. This is going to be the skinnier side pulley. Hopefully it's going to work out. We'll keep machining away here and see what happens. Now I'm hoping I got enough of a shoulder machined in there that I can flip this around and grab it from the inside. Let's find out here. Yeah, kind of looks like that's going to work. Now I can machine this flat. I can start carving this side down to whatever small diameter size pulley we're going to end up with. Haven't decided yet. So once I machine this down all flat, then it will give me an idea of the diameter, final diameter of the big pulley. And then I can decide how much I'm going to come down for the small pulley. Can't come down any smaller than this piece that we're going to push in there for the bearing. So yeah, we'll figure all that out once we start machining here. So now that we got this machine down all smooth here, we're going to do some math. we're going to divide this in half so that we can make 2 pulleys. Or is that, well, we're making 1 pulley but having 2 grooves. Yeah, that's what we'll go with. So we got 56 millimeters. Like 2 1/4 for you imperial people. 50, yeah, about 56 millimeters. So that would be 28. So that'll be half. For all you kids out there in school and your teachers are telling you to pay attention to math, they're full of crap. You're never going to remember it when it comes to the when you need it. So just stick to playing your video games and having fun, and then when you need it, you can figure it out then. But remember, I'm a crazy old hillbilly, so you probably shouldn't listen to anything I say. So we got half marked there. We're going to start turning this side here down so we get the smaller pulley. We'll leave this side the full size. We will flip it around, and then we can machine the groove in this side. Yeah, is that making sense? I think that makes sense. Kind of sounds like something that I should be saying, but yeah, let's go with that. See how it works. Now I got our block of aluminum chewed down to a point where this is the larger pulley. The inside pulley's clamped in there. Now I need to make that groove in there. Now I have a bit that's already made that will do smaller width belts, but I kind of want to make one that's going to be the profile of that. So the only piece of steel that I could come up with that is tool steel is the blade off of an old wood lathe skew. So I am going to shape this to fit that profile like that in there. Then I'm going to put a stiff back on it, like, probably some other type of square stock material. I'll stick it on there like that. I'm going to make a dedicated bit for carving out that groove, because I seem to be making a lot of pulleys with that width groove, so why not make the tool now and maybe save myself some time later on. I got us a tool shaped up here now. I welded that piece of wood skew onto the top of an old bridge decking spike. Shaped it up into the profile that we need. So we'll have the high-speed steel on the top, and just, I don't know what that spike is, probably just mild steel, but let's put this in the machine here and see what kind of trouble we can get into with it. See if it's going to do something or if it's just going to dull instantly. Okay, let's check our work now. Well, it looks like our profile of our groove is almost perfect. From what I understand, the bottom face of the belt is not supposed to bottom out totally in the groove. It's the walls of the belt that do all the gripping. So we got a little, about 1/16 of an inch to the bottom. So you see the belt sits down there on the pulley almost perfectly. I'm not going to go any deeper because that's good enough for my thing. And let's see if I can give you an idea here. what it looks like on the inside. You see a little bit of light. I don't know if you guys can see or not, but you see a little bit of light underneath the belt. The belt is down in the groove, nice. I bet you if you wouldn't tell anybody that I built this at home, if you told them I bought it at a professional pulley store, if there's such a thing, they would totally believe that. So it's probably good enough for what I'm going to do. And it's good enough to see if we can create a different gear ratio for this thing. So I'm going to flip this around and mill a groove there. If anybody was wondering what I was using on this it's just an old bottle with water in it. This aluminum is, well, it's a little suspect. I poured it out of a whole bunch of scraps, some pop cans, an old ladder. Yeah, you name it, it went into the melting pot to create that blank. So the aluminum itself is kind of mushy, and if you don't keep it really cool, it doesn't machine for shit. So just water. I tried out WD-40, that didn't do nothing, it just made smoke. So we used water and it kind of seemed to work. So let's flip that thing around and do our other side now. So we got our pulley done here now. I've heated it up and pushed that metal sleeve with the bearings in it inside. Nice tight interference fit once it cooled down. So now we need to figure out how we are going to get this in here with this belt going over the top of the big one from the motor and the small side going down to the pulley on the shaft or on the axle. Shouldn't be too hard to mount it, but remember we have our tensioner clutch thingy down here. So we're going to have to figure out how to move that up into this area here somewhere. So for those mathletes out there, we have 3-inch. We're going to measure from the outside diameter because it's easier. Okay. So the outside diameter of the motor pulley, 3-inch. The outside diameter of the big jack shaft is what I'm calling it, stepper pulley, whatever you want to call it. The outside of that one is 6 inches. The outside diameter of the smaller pulley is 3.5 inches. The outside diameter of the axle pulley is 9.5 inches. Now, if I hadn't have fallen on my head so many times when I was a kid and had multiple skull fractures and concussions, I could probably figure that out, but I'm not that smart. So one of you mathletes out there should do those numbers for me and figure out what my actual gear ratio is. That'd be kind of cool. Leave a comment in the comment section. Subscribe, because you want to keep following along to see if I actually can move with the gear ratio that you come up with. Yeah, that would be kind of neat. God, I hope this is going to work, because that was a fair amount of work to build that. Yeah. So now let's figure out all the other mess that I've created that I'm going to have to uncreate. But that is more or less where it has to go. Somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay, well, let's figure this out. Well, my big jumbly, fumbly fingers have managed to do it again, and I erased a whole bunch of footage that I had that I shouldn't have erased. But anyways, you can see that we've got our stepper pulley in here now. I built this god-awful configuration of welded together stuff and a pivot or a mount for the pulley itself. So we got spin the axle, that spins, and we got the belt in there. I've removed the old belt tensioner and started to build a new tensioner. So now we need to build a pivot from this point so that this tensioner will pivot up higher, tighten that belt up. Be exactly the same as it was before, but different. So it'll be up higher. And we're gonna have to figure out some way to come down and connect to the clutch linkage and the brake linkage and all that other stuff. But couldn't see where I'm going with this idea here. This is obviously not finished because it's just mounted here and it's going to be a little wibble wobbly, so I'll probably have to fill all this space in here with some more welding and metal and stuff, and then maybe come across here so this stepper pulley jack shaft, whatever we're calling this, doesn't move too much and is pretty secure. So I'm going to build a pivot for here now. Probably just some type of bushing with maybe 2 forks coming up off of it so that this pulley can do its thing in here. Well, I got our clutch mechanism and brake mechanism all reassembled here now. I more or less just moved everything up and had to change a bit of the linkage for here down there, and I simplified our bar that goes from the brake to the clutch. I am not going to do any more bracing or anything on this right now, and I just have the temporary plastic fuel tank in there. I'm not going to put the seat on. I'm going to stick this thing down on the floor and see if it will even attempt to move with me on it. But let's find out what's going to happen here. Well, that try obviously didn't work. The clutch belt is grabbing really good, the top belt. This belt is not grabbing very good. It's obviously stretched, loosens itself off a bit, and it's slipping. Now, the only way that I can tighten this belt up is by moving back these pillow blocks so that it tightens that belt up. Problem with that is where our brake shoe is mounted, it's going to move this drum pulley farther away from our brake shoe. But I guess I can take up some of the adjustment here and make up for that. Gonna have to slot the mounts so that I can slide this back, because the holes are just drilled fixed hole, they're not adjustable. Well, instead of going all vanilla gorilla and smashing this thing or totally giving up on it, I went for a ride on my bike, thought about some things, and I decided that instead of taking things apart, why not just weld more stuff onto it? So I found this belt tensioner pulley. It was actually off the PT Cruiser. So I just made a little tensioner, little bracket here that's slotted so the tensioner pushes up against the belt. Made the belt nice and tight, so hopefully it won't slip anymore. And I guess the only thing we can do now is try it out. Well, wish me luck here. Well, thank God that worked. I think I'm gonna leave this video here on a good note and maybe put the real fuel tank back on and the seat back on it, and maybe in the next episode we'll take it for a ride and put the drift sleeves back on it and see if it's actually drifty or not. So until next time, use what you got to make what you want, and I'll see you guys later.